On Thursday night, President Obama offered some advice to Democratic governors gathered in Washington, D.C. We know how to win national elections, he said, but all too often it's during these midterms where we end up getting ourselves into trouble because I guess we don't think it's sexy enough. But the fact of the matter is that's where so much of the action is. Well, there's another prominent Democrat who shares Obama's view. On Tuesday, former President Bill Clinton will be back on the campaign trail, stumping in Kentucky for Senate hopeful Allison Lundergan Grimes. This year, there's a real race in Mitch McConnell's bid for re-election there. A recent poll has Grimes up by 4 points, 46 to 42. And having Clinton on the ground campaigning could give her an additional boost because Clinton was the last Democrat to carry Kentucky in a presidential election. And also Arkansas and Georgia and Louisiana and Montana and West Virginia, all of them critical battlegrounds in the fight for control of the Senate this year, and all of them red states that Clinton carried at least once back in the 1990s. So it's quite possible we'll be seeing the 42nd president pop up in other states too this year. And this could be a big problem for Republicans. And if it is, it's a problem that they created for themselves. Since more than anyone else, they're the ones who have helped to create the former president's current cross-party popularity. This is a relatively recent change from what had been the rule for the first 15 or so years Clinton was on the national political stage. As recently as 2006, Fox News was aggressively challenging whether Clinton, as president, had done enough to thwart 9/11 based on the findings of the 9/11 Commission report.
If you want to criticize me for one thing, you can criticize me for this. After the cold, I had battle plans drawn to go into Afghanistan, overthrow the Taliban, and launch a full-scale attack search for bin Laden. But we needed basing rights in Uzbekistan, which we got after 9/11. The CIA and the FBI refused to certify that bin Laden was responsible. All I'm asking is, anybody wants to say I didn't do enough, you read Richard Clark's
Do you
book.
think you did enough, sir?
No, because I didn't get him.
Right.
But at least I tried. That's the difference in me and some, including all the right-wingers that are attacking me now. They ridicule me for trying. They had 8 months to try. They did not try. I tried.
Remember that. And it wasn't just Fox. It was basically the entire conservative opinion-shaping apparatus, which launched a relentless effort to tear down Bill Clinton the moment he became the Democratic presidential nominee in 1992, and continued that effort almost seamlessly until early 2008 when something funny happened. When Barack Obama won the Democratic nomination for president. For years, the right had assumed it was fighting a Clinton restoration, but now, all of a sudden, it had a new enemy-in-chief. Almost overnight, the war on Bill Clinton, the war on both Clintons, really, was called off. With Obama suddenly the new face of the National Democratic Party, the right needed a foil, somebody to hold up to next to Obama so they could argue how extreme and uncooperative the new potential president was by comparison. And that person, that foil, was Bill Clinton. While they'd previously cast Clinton as a philandering, corrupt, even dangerous president, a president they'd gone so far as to impeach, don't forget, Republicans began recasting Clinton as a champion of the middle class, a symbol of a bygone era when Democrats produced leaders who were happy to reach across the aisle to work together and compromise. And after Obama won the White House, it only intensified. To the right, Bill Clinton became the good Democratic president, a reference point they returned to over and over in their effort to paint Barack Obama as the same kind of dangerous radical they'd once painted Clinton as. Perfect example came on the eve of Bill Clinton's address to the Democratic National Convention in 2012, when the chairman of the Republican National Committee said this on national television.
The problem that Obama has with Bill Clinton is that Obama's not your daddy's Democrat. I mean, he's not a mainstream Democrat like Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton worked with both sides of the aisle. Bill Clinton was able to get some things done.
Statements like that during the last 5 years helped to depolarize opinions of Bill Clinton, to elevate him almost above politics, with Republicans suddenly free to join Democrats in praising him. He became one of the only national political figures left who is respected by both sides of the increasingly polarized electorate. The morning of Clinton's big DNC speech, even the Wall Street Journal gushed about the big dog in an editorial that was, of course, aimed at making Obama look radical by comparison. That editorial said, quote, "It's a good moment to remind everyone about the real economic history of the Clinton years and why the results differ so much from those of Obamonomics," they wrote. Remember triangulation? Clinton embraced the goal of a balanced budget, using it to outmaneuver Newt Gingrich and Republicans over a government shutdown. That's the kind of talk that explains this. Bill Clinton's favorability has been steadily increasing since mid-2008, hovering now around a staggering 70%.
If we had a Clinton presidency, if we had Erskine Bowles, Chief of Staff of the White House, or President of the United States, I think we would have fixed this fiscal mess by now. That's not the kind of presidency we're dealing with right now.
So the Republicans put Bill Clinton on a pedestal in an effort to tear down Obama, and now they find themselves in a bind. Their praise made him an unusually effective campaign trail advocate for Obama in 2012, and now he's poised to hit the trail again for the midterms. And maybe you've heard the rumblings that Hillary Clinton might run for president in 2016. So what's the right to do? Well, we may be starting to see it. Last week, the conservative website, the Washington Free Beacon, published journal entries from the 1990s kept by a close confidant of the Clintons. The Free Beacon's reporting featured conversations Diane Blair had with Hillary Clinton about the Monica Lewinsky affair and accusations of sexual assault against her husband made by other women. And so this week, Kathleen Willey, who accused Bill Clinton of sexual assault on 60 Minutes in 1998, was back on TV attacking Bill and Hillary Clinton.
We're talking about the President of the United States and what he did, lack of judgment. He dishonored the office. He dishonored the presidency. And she just stood by and watched.
Rand Paul, who wants his party's nomination for president in 2016, has been especially vocal about Bill Clinton's past in recent weeks. He's using these attacks in an attempt to undercut Clinton's fundraising ability.
The Democrats can't say, oh, we're the great defenders of women's rights in the workplace, and we will defend you against some kind of abusive boss that uses their position of authority to take advantage of a young woman, when the leader of their party, the leading fundraiser in the country, is Bill Clinton, who was a perpetrator of that kind of sexual harassment. Anybody who wants to take money from Bill Clinton or have a fundraiser has a lot of explaining to do. In fact, I think they should give the money back.
So the question is, can the Republican strategy work? Will the controversies 2 decades old resonate with voters, some of whom weren't even born back then? Can they find some other way to undo the incredible assistance they've provided to Bill Clinton's image, or is it too late? Here to discuss this, we have Robert George, an editorial writer at the New York Post, MSNBC contributor Victoria Defrancesco Soto, also a fellow at the University of Texas, Adrienne Elrod, communications director for the pro-Hillary Clinton group Correct the Record, and MSNBC contributor Perry Bacon Jr. He's the political editor for thegrio.com. Rob, I'll start with you, the resident conservative on the panel here. Are conservatives just waking up right now and saying to themselves, we made a mistake the last 5 years in how we treated Bill Clinton, and we got to correct it now before it comes back to haunt us in 2014 and 2016?
I don't think that's quite the way the conversation is going. I mean, a lot of this is the political tactics of the moment, because the Democrats obviously do the same thing, because you have this language of, Ronald Reagan wouldn't recognize the Republican Party today. He was the person who managed to work across sides. I mean, so all of that's going on all of the time. What I think is going to happen now, moving forward, as people start to move away from the Obama years and start focusing on the idea of another perspective, of a prospective Clinton administration, you're going to start seeing a harsher attack on the Clinton years and on Hillary. I mean, I think it's kind of in a sense it's kind of natural. I mean, do they regret some of the gushing rhetoric? I think Reince Priebus, I think, may want to dial back some of the things, but yeah, I mean, and look, I don't think the electorate is necessarily going to remember what ex-Republicans said about Bill Clinton a few years ago. There is a lot of stuff, though, from on a policy basis and a political basis that people could mine to attack Hillary. And I don't mean the sex stuff. I mean, I think there's a lot of solid political decisions, policy decisions that went on in the Clinton years that could come back to bite Hillary.
But it's so, Victoria, if she runs, right? Victoria, but it's so striking to me that to me the time frame is a little more. You talk about Democrats and Reagan, and I think there might be some differences there. But one difference is this is a little more truncated. I mean, Clinton was president in the 90s. Then you had the Bush presidency, Obama presidency. Now talking about Clinton running again and being back on the scene. And I just see so many. I listened to how Republicans have talked about Bill Clinton for the last 5 years, and I think of for instance, this is how Republicans talked about Bill Clinton when he was president. It was Jesse Helms in 1994.
Conservative Republican Senator Jesse Helms says he made a mistake when he suggested that President Clinton, quote, better have a bodyguard if he travels to North Carolina. But the White House officials think Republicans should take a hard look at Helms and whether he should head the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. The Secret Service has asked for a transcript of the senator's remarks.
I mean, I think we forget. We talk about, you know, maybe Republicans going back to the 1990s playbook. We talk about how Republicans have talked about Bill Clinton the last 5 years. I think we tend to forget what the 1990s were really like politically. I mean, that's just a small taste of how Republicans really treated Bill Clinton back then.
It was incredibly acrimonious. And I think this is why we see folks like Rand Paul coming out and trying to rile up the base and bringing up old accusations about Bill Clinton, because it's red meat for that Republican base. You have Democrats who love the Clintons and will always have that love for the Clintons. You have independents who maybe had a little bit of that amnesia. They thought, well, it wasn't too hot on Clinton, but, you know, he's a good guy, and the Republicans are not, you know, hurting them in that respect. But ultimately, there is a base there that can be pumped up, and they are going to be working on that. And I think what is most dangerous to the Clintons aren't the accusations against Bill, but Kathleen Wiley's interview that you showed, Willie's interview, she goes against Hillary. She doesn't attack Bill Clinton for his infidelities. She attacks Hillary Clinton for going after the women that accuse Bill Clinton. I think that's going to be potentially more dangerous.
But again, that popped up in the Hillary papers, that aspect of, you know, calling Monica Lewinsky a nutball.
I mean, it popped up in the 90s, and it wasn't enough to take Bill Clinton down in the 1990s. Impeachment was an incredibly unpopular thing. It certainly was enough to unify Republicans and to unify
and that's all they need.
Will that work to say, though, this is not the Republican strategy. This is the Rand Paul, the Washington Free Beacon, maybe Fox News. You've already seen Mitt Romney and Karl Rove. The establishment of the party is already saying, let's be careful about this. Let's talk about Hillary Clinton. Let's talk about Benghazi. Let's not talk about Monica Lewinsky. So I think you're seeing a divide. The party's trying to figure out, Hillary's probably running, how do we attack her? So Rand Paul's going in one direction, the establishment's going in the other direction, and it'll be curious to see which one of those ends up being the final strategy.
But the other question that's raised there is, okay, yeah, so maybe the entirety of the party doesn't want to go back to the 90s and doesn't want to be talking about sexual harassment and all this sort of stuff. But, you know, there's a recognition that, hey, Hillary Clinton's spouse now has a 70% approval rating. This is something they never had to deal with in the 1990s. I mean, you'd think back to 2012 and how effective Bill Clinton was at that convention. Are there other ways? I mean, I got to assume that people like Karl Rove are saying, okay, fine, we're not going to talk about the 90s, but we got to do something about Bill Clinton, right?
I have not. So far, the people who are running against Alison Grimes in Kentucky or Mark Pryor in Arkansas, they think they have a great villain whose name is Barack Obama. They're not that worried about. I mean, I think the case against Hillary Clinton in 2016 will not be about Bill Clinton, be about the third term of Barack Obama. That's where they're headed. The Republicans are not super worried about Bill Clinton coming to Kentucky and reversing the fact that Obama has a 32% approval rating there. That's what their focus is. I think Mitch McConnell will not bring up Bill Clinton throughout. If I were him, I would ignore the whole visit, in fact, and focus on Obamacare and the things they're already campaigning against.
I couldn't agree more.
What do you make of it, Adrienne? Now, I mean, it's watching. You come from Arkansas. I know you've seen sort of the rise of the Clintons in the national stage. I mean, to me, it's been jarring the last 5 years to remember the 1990s and to see how Bill Clinton is talked about, and to hear how Bill Clinton is talked about now by Republicans.
No, I completely agree. And look, you know, I love Vanilla Ice. I love scrunchies. I mean, the 90s were great for many of us, but you know, at the end of the day, this is old rehashed news, and they're not running. They're choosing to, you know, target the 90s and some of the events that happened there because they don't want to attack them on their record because they have such a strong record of accomplishments.
Well, so Perry started to tease it. We'll take a quick break here and we'll get into it. But there is the question of 2014 and the impact that Bill Clinton could potentially have in 2014. I know Republicans want to only run against Obama, but I expect we'll see Clinton out there. It is interesting, these red states that are up for grabs. So we'll talk a little bit about those when we come back.